One of my favorite projects that we're working on is virtual recovery and rehab application that's using AI to interact with people, continue to check in on them, give them challenges, help keep them sober, being able to kind of automate that support system. And ideally, we'll have enough data at some point to sort of get an idea of predicting when people are in danger of relapsing so that we can get them that support.
This is another episode of the Automate and Grow podcast, and my guest today is Quinn Royston from the DevMasters. And Quinn and the DevMasters are in the really scary realm of artificial intelligence. So before you hang up and don't listen to it, we have a really interesting discussion ahead of us. So Quinn, I really appreciate you jumping on.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure.
So we were talking before, and the DevMasters really has kind of two components to your business. So I guess the first component is really around education, right? And particularly around data scientists. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what the DevMasters do in that area and how that helps people that are in that realm, that skill set.
Sure. So there's a few different components to that. I would categorize that as people that are looking to become data scientists, managers that are looking to bring data science into their team, or corporations that they may have software engineers, they may have some data scientists, but they need to further build up their skill set in a variety of areas.
Great. So anyone that's, probably some sort of information technology background, currently working probably is going to look at that as a way for their future career path, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's one of the most in-demand skills today. And so we often find that we'll get data analysts, but we'll also get some software engineers because while data science involves programming, it's not the same.
Right.
So I wouldn't hire a software engineer to do my data science. I wouldn't necessarily hire a data scientist to do my software engineering.
Got it. Okay. And then you mentioned that you have like a 5-day course, and that's more of like an executive management training.
Yep.
Really around the capabilities of AI and how to apply it to a business problem, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so I like to think of that as kind of knowing enough to be dangerous. So there's some hands-on components so you can kind of get into the feel of it. But it covers a variety of topics ranging from machine learning and data visualization to some NLP. And it kind of goes over what are some of the use cases, how do these technologies work, and really gives you an idea. So as you're managing a data science team, you can understand what some of the challenges they're going to have. And so you can get ahead of the game.
And you mentioned an acronym there, which is NLP. And I think in your case, NLP stands for natural language processing, right?
Correct.
And that's where you use machine learning and artificial intelligence around voice conversations or chat conversations?
So there's a few different kind of fields around NLP. NLP is primarily with text, whereas voice is going to be NLU. And then getting into kind of generating that text, that's more in NLG. So you can think of NLP like understanding what a human is saying to you. And even within that, there's, if we want to go deeper into chatbots, there's kind of your rule-based chatbots, which is a lot of what you're likely to see or likely to start out with to kind of start collecting data, because that is one of the biggest things you need is data on how is your customer base communicating. Right. And then oftentimes we go from there into a more intelligent system. And just a quick note on chatbots, you'd be surprised at how often you are on a site and you may be talking with a person, right, and you're probably talking to a bot. I think the number is something like 30% now, and it's growing.
I think, and not to go too far down that rabbit hole, but I think that's one of the more immediate applications that people are getting comfortable with.
Yeah.
And for people that are listening that may not know, obviously a lot of our communication is through like text, Facebook Messenger, right? Maybe even email in some cases. I don't know if it's applied to that as much. I've seen some startups do that, like X.AI. We interviewed Dennis Mortensen.
Yeah, like your spam filters are likely using NLP to process that.
Right. So those are probably the most currently accessible and understandable applications of that, methodology, right?
Yeah, the truth about AI is that it's kind of coming a little bit more to the forefront, but it's really at the core of a lot of your daily services that you use every day, and in some cases you've been using it for a while. So it's not this big scary thing, and I think where a lot of people get kind of confused is they go from AI or weak or narrow AI to like AGI or strong AI,
Mm.
which is more of that generalized, intelligent human level across a variety of things. I think I don't like to use the Terminator, but that's
Terminator is the best
the best
example,
example.
right?
But
Although I don't, I gotta say, the last movie I was not impressed with, but
yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
other than that, I mean, that concept is there, which is, and if we're applying it, if I think of big companies that are doing this, there's obviously like Amazon has Alexa,
Yep.
and there's components of that. It's not really, I mean, it's kind of autonomous, right? But it's the same idea. It's like understanding what I'm asking and then finding the right search results or solution for it, right?
Yeah, yeah, and right now I've seen some other kind of chatbot technology that some are kind of laying over Alexa to try and give it some more intelligence, because
Right.
one of the challenges with like Google Now and Alexa and
Right.
Siri
Yep.
is sort of understanding that kind of contextual, and something even as simple as creating a list. Sometimes you'll say 5 things and it goes, okay, that's just one item in your list. And if I made like a list of, hey Alexa, add to a list avocados, 5 bottles of wine, napkins, and some plates, and I would go, okay. And if I said, hey Alexa, can you make that 6 bottles of wine, and I would go, what?
Yeah, it's too much right now. Right? You can see where that's where the learning comes in, because I think over
Yeah,
time, and their model is interesting. Which again, I'll try not to go down this rabbit hole too much, but
sorry.
well, that's me. But I think it's an interesting use case and the most accessible for people.
Oh yeah,
I
oh
do
yeah.
like to talk about NLP and chatbots.
Mhm.
So going back to it, I think what you see is they have an open model in that maybe 10 years ago, I was building apps for a lot of companies and startups, right?
Mhm.
And their app is, it's a piece of software for a mobile phone, right? And that was
Yep,
a new concept at one point. And
yep.
the new concept now are skills around these platforms like Google and Alexa. And that's where like an independent developer can build an app but for voice that has some intelligence behind it. Is that kind of a good way to?
Yeah, they're kind of trying to open source it, and I think we've seen in, I mean, at least the last few decades, like open source technology is kind of a trend, and it's kind of, we'll invest in sort of the foundational component of it, but then we'll utilize the community to help it grow and understand, and especially when it comes to anything AI, it's all about data. How much data can I get? How much ideally quality data can I get? So if you're looking at like Google search engine, for example, like that's learning kind of based off you. Um,
And the trove of information is everything. That's a
yep.
big, the biggest data set probably, I would think, but maybe not. Maybe.
Oof.
I think there's a bigger one actually. There's like,
Maybe. I mean, Facebook's pretty big too, but
right,
it's. I
true.
don't. I'd have to look up the numbers, but I think Google would be a pretty safe bet.
Okay, so and I think my point where I want to come back to is, so anyone that's currently in, whether a software developer or a data scientist 10 years ago was probably jumping on apps. I think the current opportunity that's going for the next 10 years is going to be anything related to AI, and components of that might be an example, which is, these NLP voice chat type conversations, right? So it's like a specialization, a special application of that, right? That's accessible to.
Yeah, I would definitely say potentially, like we're definitely getting more and more towards how can we have a human interaction or human level interaction without having to have a human man all the time. My AI can be up 24/7, 365, whereas people can't. And it's also going to make experiences more consistent. So it's only going to keep growing. It's only going to keep growing.
And that's where your education side of your business comes in, which is someone that's wants to learn, whether they're an executive or a data scientist or even a developer. Okay, what's all this stuff mean?
Mhm.
What are the potential applications? So I think like all the doomsday stuff too that's out there about, oh, it's going to take everybody's jobs. What they don't understand is the stuff that you're training people on is the next generation of apps. It's just something different, right? It's not a piece of software on a mobile device. It's these universal applications that might be through the web or through a specific piece of software or through a social network, through chat, or text
Absolutely.
through mobile network. So there's opportunities we're not even talking about because people that don't understand the potential of this and the fact that you need skills to build that stuff and
Yeah.
manage it and grow it.
Yep. At the end of the day, I mean, it's just opening up more opportunities, just like the Industrial Revolution before it. That may be a little bit of a grandiose statement, but the
No,
truth is,
it's totally true.
as new tech comes, it's just going to open up new and unique and completely different opportunities, some of which we haven't thought of yet. And I mean, long term for AI, and this is way off, is for it to really take care of a lot of things that we don't want to do.
Right.
And so how does that impact society, and what does that kind of future look like? I don't know, but it's certainly an interesting thing to ponder. And one of the other important things whenever you're building out an AI system is to consider what is the ethical impact, because it looks purely at data. And so that's one of the things that we also kind of talk about as we go, okay, like make sure you think about what you're building, how it's building, and look at sort of the context of the data. So there's always going to be people involved, but AI just opens up more opportunities and has the potential to really make a lot of people's lives a lot easier. I mean, I love just telling Google, hey, can you get me to the grocery store from here? I don't know where I'm
Right.
going.
You don't have to flip out a map.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
crazy stuff we used to do is like B4.
Oh yes. The Thomas guides.
B7, and you're looking on a crazy map. Go to page 78. Like
Yep.
compare that to just Google Maps.
Yep.
It's kind
Yep.
of crazy. So,
Yep.
I just want to touch on, what you said, which is you compared this to the Industrial Revolution. In my book, I reference, Peter Diamandis' discussion on this, which is that we're entering the fourth industrial revolution, which is, we've gone through the industrial mechanical revolution. That's the first generation. The second was, kind of like this whole semi-automation around that. The third was computers and networks. And now we're getting into the automation of computers and networks.
Yep.
That's exactly what you're talking about, which is yes, there'll be changes,
Yeah.
but if I'm in the space or looking to get in this space, taking something like the program that DevMasters offers to start getting my head wrapped around, here's how I can apply my skill set to AI and be useful in that future world to solve problems with AI or machine learning or NLP or all of it.
Exactly.
This is the first step. And I think we're when you look at people talk about the hockey stick or like exponential growth, we're in year zero.
We're pretty.
We're probably a year or two into it, but like really, what's going to happen 10 years from now is going to be way up here in the technology. Right?
Yeah. As far as like what part of the stick, we're definitely on the lower end, and it's always interesting when I talk about AI and machine learning, and a lot of it, like a lot of the foundation has been around for quite a while.
Right.
But part of the reason that it's booming now is for one, storage is really cheap. Internet's pretty fast. So we can get a lot more performance, and we have more data than ever before. And that's growing at a pretty astronomical
crazy,
pace.
right? Like the stats are something like it doubles every, I don't know. We talk about, Moore's law fueled probably 25 years of innovation around networks, right? Internet, private networks. And that was like the doubling of processing power,
Yeah.
Well, now we're kind of that with storage, which is what all this stuff runs on, data, right? Which is stored. That's the basis of that storage, right?
I think if I remember right, it's something like in the next couple of years, we're expecting somewhere around 40 zettabytes, and we may already be pretty close. Which, to put that in context for people, that's like if you have, say, like an average smartphone, and let's say that it doesn't have an operating system, and you just filled it with all the puppy pictures and cat videos you possibly could.
High res.
And yes, high res, of course. And every single person in the world would have to have something like, I did a calculation at one point, something like 350 of these.
Damn.
Yeah, and that's just within the next couple of years, and that's only going to continue to grow and grow and grow. So that's a lot of puppy pictures. So keep it up, internet.
Right. Well, I think all of the point of all this is that it's easy to look at what's going to go away
Yeah.
It's we have to start encouraging more people that are smart to start thinking of, well, what's going to happen? How can I be useful and impactful in that space? And there's going to be new opportunities that for entrepreneurs.
Oh yeah.
And it's not just like these monolithic organizations, because they all have ecosystems
Mhm.
where we can participate as developers, as entrepreneurs, as people with just an idea, just the way the app revolution happened, right? Where it's like anyone had an app idea. Like there was 5 years where everybody, like from your barber to your gardener to your mom, had an app idea. And I think
Mhm.
that's where we got to start talking about AI, right? And that's why I love the first part of your business, which is this education and data science boot camp. It's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and actually, it's interesting that you mentioned the entrepreneurs and these sort of what new opportunities lie there. One of my favorite projects that we're working on is sort of a virtual recovery and rehab application that's using AI to interact with people
Mhm.
and continue to check in on them, give them challenges, and help keep them sober. So being able to kind of automate that support system in a way. And ideally, we'll have enough data at some point to sort of get an idea of predicting when people are in danger of relapsing so that we can get them that support before that occurs. So there's a lot of really, really interesting applications for this technology.
I think of, when things are happening to us and we don't understand, we only see the outcome, right? And I'll use like, you just use something that's very physical and personal to people,
Yeah.
but feel it, which is, hey, I'm just going to drink, and they're not conscious of it.
Mhm.
And I think where we're seeing technology like what you're describing is being able to identify those peaks and valleys, whether it's chemical or behavioral or whatever the data on even just you individually is, to coach you.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And so that's a really great example. And there's so many of those applications.
Oh yeah.
We need more and more smart people thinking in the context of, well, what can this do? What could this do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Potential, 'cause it's all accessible, I think, if we start thinking along those lines, as opposed to my job's going to go away and
Yeah.
there's not going to be any work. And you
Yeah.
see politicians, their solution is take money away from people
Mhm.
and redistribute it, because they don't get the real opportunity. It's way beyond them. They don't even understand Facebook, right?
Yeah. That Congress that was a little embarrassing.
Well, what's
A little
scary
bit.
is it's not just there, right? Like this is like,
Yeah.
what country is going to be better?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not.
Oh.
So that's why I kind of like this, not to be political, but it's interesting to hear Andrew Yang, which he has a temporary solution, but I know in the back of his head somewhere, he gets this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, let's give you a dough to bridge, because some people aren't going to be able to adapt,
Mhm.
but he gets that there's going to be the entrepreneur led, the developer led, the engineer led application of this stuff to make everybody's life better eventually.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, really, before you can achieve a dream, you have to have the dream first, and then you kind of work. You go, okay, this is where I want to get. It's kind of that start with the end in mind. For anyone that likes 7 Habits of Highly Successful People,
Stephen Covey.
good old Stephen Covey. It's like dream it, then we got to figure out how do we get there.
Right.
So it's like let's kind of dream about some of the problems that can be solved, and then let's go think about how do we get there. Like we also work with businesses on the kind of custom AI software development and consulting side of things, which is a lot where my role comes into play. And so one of the things that I'll have people sometimes come to me and they go, I really want to incorporate AI into my business. And sometimes they'll just be like, I want deep learning. And I kind of go, well, wait, it might be a deep learning problem, but it might not be. Uh, how about we start with what's the pain point? What's the
Right.
problem? Let's start with that. And then let's kind of think about what is your dream for not having to deal with that anymore. And
Right.
then let's
Exactly.
figure out if this is an AI solution, and two, if so, what kind, and let's go from there. So always start with the pain point. Always start with the problem.
Yeah. So and I love that also, because now, in your second part of your business, you're able to, much like I am, what is, okay, let's not be intimidated by the technology. Let's figure out what business you're in, how that's going to look over time, beginning with that final vision. And then
Yeah.
we're, to your point, we have to start encouraging leaders in businesses, and it's through programs like you have and your consulting practice. Okay,
Hmm.
well, what could you do and what could you do now, and what does that lead to, which is a roadmap for AI for your business, and
Yep.
a roadmap around data, which is a component of that. So That's really exciting to me. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's fun stuff.
So I want to be respectful of your time because I could talk for hours on this stuff,
Yes,
but
okay.
I think it's a really important discussion. And I do want to invite you to join me again if you wanted to talk about any components of this.
Yeah.
But it's to me, it's very, very important that we start having more of these types of discussions with business leaders across industries and making it accessible, because it is very accessible. Like even if I think about, I'll use one example, which is beyond chatbots, but maybe more complex, is IBM. And people see this IBM Watson. And what people don't realize is there are APIs, which are programming interfaces that you can integrate your software to, that they offer to give you the capability to use their AI in your software product or your business.
Yeah.
There's stuff, and I think all this stuff is hidden right now. People don't know about it, and it's more complex than just an app, obviously, which was, the prior 2007 onward Apple revolution, right? But I think by bringing these discussions forward, that it will encourage people to think along these, and we'll just have like so much innovation, and where we'll be in 10 years is going to be like pretty awesome.
Oh, I mean, do you really recognize the world from 10 years ago? It's a completely different place.
Right. Like I wouldn't expect any less. We're hitting 2020, so it better.
Yeah.
I'm almost like, come on, pick it up.
Yeah, fair enough.
Where's my flying car?
Yeah. Where's my flying car? Where's my beam me up, Scotty?
Well, that's yeah.
Hey, big.
I want to make sure that you have an open invitation. We can schedule an additional time, but I really appreciate this initial discussion. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you think that we should?
Well, I mean, I could probably talk on AI for hours. So I'll just leave with one kind of AI system that my guess is people interact with on a pretty much daily basis, and that's recommender systems.
Right.
And the most prominent examples of that would be Amazon, of course, that kind of you might also like section. And then things like Pandora, Netflix, Spotify does it. I mean, any streaming service, has some kind of recommendation engine. So I would just leave with, you're all interacting with AI on a daily basis. I could throw a few other facts out there, but it is approachable, and it is going to continue to revolutionize the way that we live our lives. So if anyone has questions or wants to chat more one-on-one, please feel free to reach out to me. I can leave you with my email here if that's okay.
Yeah, perfect.
It's Quinn, Quinn, at the DevMasters, TheDevMasters.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, so feel free to reach out if you want to chat about getting educated or consulting, or you just have a question. I'm always happy to chat with people.
Perfect. That's amazing. Normally I ask how you're changing the world. I think we're getting an idea of it.
Oh boy. There's some very interesting projects. Some I can talk on, some I can't as much just yet. I'm really excited about the drug and alcohol recovery application. I think that's going to have a major impact on a population that's often left behind. And I think similar types of applications can work in other arenas as well. So that's a big one. We're also looking to do some work in the real estate sector as far as Southeast Asia. Perhaps once we get a little deeper into that, I can elaborate maybe on one of our next calls. And we're also looking at kind of doing some innovation within construction as well. And there's some interesting opportunities there. So kind of looking at some underserved markets is probably the way I would put it, that maybe don't always have the amount of technology innovation. And a lot of some of these concepts are from large enterprises, and some of them are much more entrepreneurial minded. So I would just kind of close with dream big, and let's figure out how to make that dream here. Let's make it real.
What's the saying? Do robots dream? Is that what the
do robots dream?
Is that Asimov?
I think that sounds like Asimov. That sounds like something I remember from iRobot.
It is, which is Isaac Asimov.
Yeah. It's a good movie.
That's what it is. Okay, final thing is when we have interesting guests, and I do want to have you back, so maybe we can schedule something again.
Yeah.
We have interesting guests on the podcast. We like you to recommend or nominate other interesting guests. So I'd like to know who you would like to nominate as a future guest of the Automate and Grow podcast.
Let me dig through my contacts a little bit and give some thought to who would be the best fit, and I can get back to you on that. But I think some of our
any name come to mind?
I think some of our clients would be potentially interested, but okay. I want to chat with them first before I throw that out there.
I'll let you off the hook on that because I'm also going to have you back. So that's great. All right. I appreciate your time today. This has been a really interesting discussion. I know it's just the tip of an iceberg on bigger discussions.
Oh yeah. Thank you very much.
No problem. This has been another episode of the Automate and Grow podcast. We will see you on a future episode of Automate and Grow.